Hey guys, welcome to the Growing Place. So it's just Dakota today, and you may be wondering why this episode is coming out so late, unless you don't know our upload schedule, which is every Monday morning. And if so, well, you're just getting a midweek surprise if you did know that, and if you didn't, well, this is just normal for you. So I was talking to Pastor Elliott, and because of the holidays and the crazy schedule, we did not have time to film anything for this week ahead of time. And we tried, but he got a very bogged down with work, and I had a lot of things already planned. We just did not have time to get together. But lately, I have been feeling God's been wanting me to give my testimony on here. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing today. And I prayed about it a bit, and I was going to do it and have it out on Monday, but then I got really busy on Sunday, so I just didn't have time. Well, then the last couple days, I've just been so dead tired that I just have not had the energy, but also it's not easy, to relive some of the things that you have to talk about sometimes. So I've given my testimony before in a couple different settings, but this will probably be the most unscripted, the most just real version of it. So I'm going to give a trigger warning now. That some of this might not be triggering to anybody. It might be triggering to a lot of people. I'm honestly not sure, because I don't know if anybody that's listening will understand, or I'm sure a good chunk of people do, but I'm saying I don't know if anybody will need to hear this, but I'm hoping that somebody will get something from this. So the thing that God has healed me of, and I say healed, but with a lot of things, with testimonies, it's typically something you come out of, but with certain things, it's something you still deal with even way after the fact. Even if you're healed with it, it's still like a battle. And for me, that is a couple things. It is comparison. It is basically self-image and stuff like that, and loneliness to some degree. Those are all things that I struggle very deeply with, and it's something I have to battle even to this day. It's something that I have dealt with since I was very young. If I'm going all the way back, it was back when I was really little. If you know my family, you'll know that my family has very southern accents. And growing up, I never had one. We never figured out why. We never knew why, but I just never picked up on the accent, to the point where I wouldn't even use southern slang. Anybody who knows me will recognize that I never use the word y'all unless I'm pointing out that I've never said that word. I have never used that word in an actual sentence because it's just not me. So when I was younger, I used to say car like a Yankee or something like that. And my parents would always, anywhere we went when I was little, my parents would have me say it to all the people around me. I never understood, and like a bunch of other things. And then I just never understood why I was always being called out for the way I said things. It's like, now I have no problem with it. I have enjoyed that my northern accent. But back then it was really bizarre. And it's not anything like I work in education. Everyone does this. This is just a thing that happens. But to me, it really just stood out to me as a kid, and it's something I remember very, very well, even though I was only like 3 or 4. But I remember it very vividly, a lot of the instances. And it just, was one of those things. And as time went on, I was homeschooled until 3rd grade, where I got put into public school. It was rough, to say the least. I was the smallest kid, including all the girls. I just was always a very small person, and I was much smaller than everyone around me. So I got picked on a lot for that growing up. Even in 3rd grade, that was something I got picked on for. I was very sheltered growing up, so I didn't know what a lot of things that most of the kids I knew. So because of that, I got picked on for not knowing things and all the different things like that. It made it a little hard to understand and relate to anybody, and I didn't really want to know some of the things that they did, which put us at more of a distance. it really wasn't that bad in elementary school, but where it really peaked was in 6th grade, where I was quite literally, like, it wasn't just insult to injury, it was insult and injury. I was beaten multiple times, in multiple different ways, because I was the smallest kid in the school. And again, I was smaller than all the girls too. I fit inside those half-size lockers. I look like when I was 14, for reference, in freshman year of high school, I looked like a 7-year-old. So you can imagine how I looked in 6th grade. So I got shoved in lockers a lot. I got beat down into the bleachers and shoved down the bleachers. I was punched, kicked, so many different things. And a lot of these things when I tell people that, they're like, it couldn't have been that bad. This is just an example of one of the worser things that I dealt with. At the end of 6th grade, second to last week of school, this girl that I knew thought I called her a lesbian. I didn't even know what that word meant back then. Like, I didn't even know that word existed, so there's no way that's actually true. But she just took that and ran with it. She got the 2 biggest guys in our class. They came in at the end of the school day. They grabbed my arms and started giving me Indian burns, while she got another girl to start punching and kicking the whole front half of my body to the point where I was just, like, bleeding and bruised. And the girl that thought I called her a lesbian was sharpening pencils and came back and started stabbing me in the back and leaving them in my back. This all happened within 3 minutes, just consistently. And my teacher was sitting 5 feet away from me, laughing at me. She thought this was funny. That teacher is no longer at that school, but I was just beaten and bruised and made fun of for every single thing I did. And at that point, I was also in youth group. And again, being the smallest one there, that makes you a target. Now, youth group wasn't that bad, but I was a weirder kid. I didn't get things. Things were not the same for me as everyone else, and the way that I viewed things or whatever. And there are different people who will tell different stories of stuff like that, of the things that I did. And I look back and I'm like, why would I say those? Like, why was I like that? But that's neither here nor there. In 7th grade, the bullying got so bad, along with just other reasons, with teachers and stuff like that, that we pulled me out and I was homeschooled the rest of the time. It was just very rough overall. And again, I still dealt with it in the youth group, and even with some of my friends. I was always, in every friend group, I was the one who was the easiest target. I was the punching bag of the group, the butt of all the jokes. And it was fine. At least I had an idea that they cared. But it just, over time, it really weighs on you, you know? And high school is where it kind of got it at its worst. And here's the thing. People like to say that high schoolers are very overdramatic. And to some degree, sometimes they are. But here's the thing. In those moments, everything does feel worse. And no problem is worse than one another. Just because you think it's stupid doesn't mean they do. So you have to remember that. So a lot of what happened still went on. I was still bullied and picked on, and less beatings because I wasn't around the kids that did that, but it was mostly just verbal stuff at this point. And some of it would come across as jokes and some didn't. I joined a theater group, and theater groups are nothing but drama, and they will knock you down to size. They will say any bad thing about you they can, and the adults do nothing to stop it. They care about their lead stars, and everyone else just kind of falls to the wayside. So I had to endure that. Made me feel less of myself. I finally hit a growth spurt and finally started catching up to people in height. But I also got really skinny at the time. When I hit my growth spurt, I got really skinny. But I also was in dance at the time. And I don't know why, but the longer I was, after the growth spurt, I just started feeling very self-conscious about my hair, about my voice, about my weight. I have no real reason as to why, but I became like I had body dysmorphia, as simple as it is. Like, I paid attention to everything, anyone who grew up with me in high school knows how obsessed I was with my hair. I had to always style it. You would never see me out of my house without my hair styled. Not even in a hat. I refused to ever leave the house with my hair unstyled. If my clothes weren't perfect, I was not leaving the house. And I got to the point where even though I weighed, when I was 16 years old or 17, 16 or 17. No, it was definitely 16. When I was 16, I weighed 115, 120 pounds. But to me, that felt fat. I felt like I was gaining too much weight, even though I was literally a twig. And I started cutting back on eating. I was also going through just some mental stuff back then, and my self-image was destroyed because of everything that had been said about me over the years. And also in high school, I was rejected a lot by the women or girls around me at the time, so that didn't really help either. And a lot of those girls back then, it was always commenting on my physical appearance or my personality. Like, we're teenagers, we're kids. We were being, like, nobody realizes how things affect other people back then, but it definitely affected me. So I stopped eating. I went from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day, and then 1 meal a day. And then there was an 8-day long period where I didn't touch an ounce of food. I drank water and some ice cubes, but that was it. Like, how I did not end up hospitalized is by the grace of God. It honestly is. I became like my parents will tell you, I hid in my room. I never left. If you went to my parents' house, I was in my room. I hid from the world. You would only see me at church, youth group, and dance. You would not see me outside of those places. If it wasn't that, and don't get me wrong, I loved the stage. I was a dancer. Was a theater kid. I loved the stage. The stage is where I felt most confident. And really, that was my place of confidence. Ironically, the place where you would face the most ridicule and judgment, but it was the place I was the most comfortable. Don't really know why, but that's just how it was. But just with time, I just became more anorexic. Like, I became unhealthy because I was so obsessed with my weight. Eventually, I did start eating again, mostly because my friends were getting concerned, and even with everything, I cared about my friends so deeply. Even if I didn't think they cared about me, I very much cared about them. And they were getting worried, so for their sake, I ate. Well, as I got older and went off to college, college and me did not mix. It was not for me. I could not get it figured out. It's a whole long story, but it just was not for me. And I hated that because I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be like all my friends who had, and it made me feel less of myself for not. I know now that if you don't go to college, you are perfectly fine, but it made me feel less than everyone else who did go to college and pursued their dream careers. And I still have that every now and again because I still haven't been to college. And, my job, I love my job. Don't get me wrong. I love my job, but it doesn't pay as much as everyone else's. And, money's the root of all evil. And when you start comparing with money, that is just a rabbit hole of bad. So college it wasn't for me. I ended up dropping out and got a couple different jobs here and there, but nothing ever really, I was still comparing myself, and I didn't really like to tell people what I did for work. I just worked at a movie theater, but that's not like the most glamorous job, and so I didn't really tell people that. Eventually people found out, and I just tried to make it my own. And now, all these years, like I said, I was the butt of every joke in every friend group, and that is still true to this day. But I'll get into more about that in a little bit as to why that is still the case. But it was just one of those things where I kind of grew numb to it. But it affected me a lot growing up. I just kind of grew to expect that somebody was going to make fun of me. So to kind of own it, I would start making jokes about myself in a very self-deprecating way, where I was like, I kind of had the mentality that if I made the joke first, then nobody could hurt me with it. And that's just kind of how I lived. And I would make all these jokes left and right. And as I got into my adult years, I I really struggled with the dating scene. Getting into that topic, like, I am currently 26 years old at the time of filming this. I just turned 26 a few months ago. I still, to this day, at December, mid-December of 2024, I have still never dated anyone. I have just never been as fortunate as others in that regard. And I had to watch all of my siblings grow up, date people, get married, and now all three of my siblings are about to have kids. I am so extremely happy for them. I want to make that very clear. But that drew a lot of comparisons. And even growing up, the person I compared myself most to growing up was my brother. He's 2 years younger than me, but he was always a more quiet, reserved type. And girls just kind of, I wouldn't say flock to him, but I'm not making this up. Almost every girl I liked back then ended up liking, if they didn't like me, they would like my brother, essentially. That happened numerous times where I would like somebody and they would always like my brother. And that made it really hard, especially because my brother then grew to be taller than me. He also went off to college and got the job doing what he wanted. He had the better set of hair. He was more muscular, more slim. Like, everything I wanted to be, my brother pretty much got everything I wanted. And it was really hard not to draw comparisons. All my siblings grew up and they all got boyfriends and girlfriends, and I couldn't get a single date to anything. I literally, for my proms, both of my junior and senior prom, I went to junior prom with one of my friends, and it was good. It wasn't good. It was awkward, but I enjoy the thought of it now, just because at least it wasn't the worst case scenario. And it's mostly because if I compare it to my senior prom, that was awful. My senior prom, I asked my friend to go with me because I just didn't want to go by myself. And I just oh yeah, this friend's cool. Well, a couple months later, her and my brother started dating. Now, I want to point out, I had no interest in this girl. Not at all. She was just a friend and just somebody I just could talk to go with. But her and my brother started dating. So then he went to prom with us, and I was then suddenly a third wheel to my own date. And that is not on my brother. That is not on her. That was just how it happened. That was just my luck in the matter. And that was awful. I would give anything to redo that night, but it's just how it is. So I say all that to say it's just I have never had luck in the dating scene. Even as an adult, I have tried dating apps. I've tried setups. I've tried so many different things, to the point where I have faced so much rejection from women that it honestly, it's hard to think about. It's really hard to go back to that, because I wanted to have kids by 25. I wanted to have my first kid by 25. I'm 26, and I can count the number of dates I've been on one hand. Now, some people might think that's pathetic. Some people might also understand that and relate to it. I don't know. I am at the point now where I don't care anymore. And that was a hard place for me to get to that point. But I'll get to that in a minute. So with it, I liked people in my dance group and my theater group and just youth group, whatever. There's people, you grow to enjoy them, but I just faced rejection after rejection. Some were very nice rejections, and some were very brutal rejections and embarrassing rejections, but it was never really anything. And then just a couple years ago, I ended up meeting this one girl at work who I ended up clicking with right away, but she was never very committal with me. She'd give time, some energy, but she just wouldn't commit. And then she ended up hearing this rumor at work which she later admitted to me that she knew was completely false, but she couldn't believe it in the moment. Or, I mean, she wanted to believe it in the moment. She knew that the rumor was complete false, like fake and all that. And she ended up dumping me. I say dumping, we never really dated. We were just like kind of in the talking phase. But she ended things over text message on my birthday after ghosting me that whole weekend. It was like this long text, and never once in it did she say she was sorry or anything. She just said that she couldn't do it anymore, along with numerous other things. And then a few months later, she ended up dating her ex. That was really hard for me. That was a rejection I was not ready for. Any rejections after or before that, I was kind of prepared for. That one hurt. That one hurt more than I could have explained, because she wouldn't commit to me at all, but she ran back to her ex after ending things with me and ended up marrying the guy. A guy that she even admitted to me she didn't like. She couldn't stand the guy on numerous occasions. But look, I'm happy for her. You know, if she's happy, that's fine. I have no resentment, no anger towards her. I forgave her that night. And I honestly, her and I have talked since then, and she's doing great, and I'm happy for her. But at that time, that really hurt. And I wasn't sure if I'd ever be willing to open myself up to somebody again. I couldn't take another rejection like that. So it's been hard, because it's still something I desire. I still desire relationship. I still desire to have a wife, but I had to give that up. And again, I'll get into that in a little bit. So throughout my whole life, it's just been a lot of this all over the place of just people making fun of me, being beaten, rejection from not just relational situations like with women, but also a lot of people. I'm a very kind person. I care about people, but not everybody receives that the way that I'd like them to. And some people just do not like me, and that's fine. You know, they don't have to like me. I don't care. You know, I'm going to be nice to you either way, or at least try to, but it's just one of those things where I've just faced a lot of rejection from a lot of different people. So, and then again, comparisons to family and some of my friends, my best friend, even with the relation thing. I mean, like, even he's found his wife in like the most random, crazy circumstance, and I love her. She is like part of my family. Him and her are like family to me. And I was the best man at the wedding. That was one of the most fun nights of my life. But it's just one of those things where it's like you really try not to compare yourself. But it is so hard sometimes when everybody is around you. They're getting the words of affirmation that you need. They're getting the things you desire, and all you get is just ridicule. So how God kind of worked in my life with this. I've always believed in God. I was raised in church, and I talk to him pretty regularly. I struggle to read my Bible, and I still do to some degree, but I just hate reading. That's not because of the Bible. I just don't like reading. I listen to things more, but anyways, besides the point. I ended up deciding one day, I was like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel alone. I don't want to feel lost and broken and like I have nobody. So then one day I end up meeting this guy. He was a lot like me, but more extra in a way. And he had a lot of friends, people who I could tell genuinely cared about him. And one day it was like God revealed to me, he said, this person here, if this person is just like you and acts this way, that's even more you than you, and he has all these people who love them, why can't they love you? Because even though I had a lot of friends, even my best friends, my best friend who I've known my entire life, there was a point where I really just felt like they tolerated me, where it's like nobody really wanted to be around me. I always felt like that because I always felt like an annoyance to everybody, because that's how I was always described to everybody. in my life. I was always told I was an annoyance. So I always felt like one. So I tried not to burden people. I tried to keep my distance. And after that situation, that's kind of when I felt God start trying to pull me. I ended up going to the church I'm at now, and that definitely helped. I never asked God to give me people in my life who I knew cared. But after I started going to that church, I just started to look at things from a different point of view. And I really just tried to understand. And the more I read scripture, the more I realized that it's like Jesus faced so much rejection. Like, his disciples were really the only ones there for him. And now people, they flocked to him because of his healing, but that's because they could, they believed they could heal him. But the disciples just knew who he was, and they loved him. And the disciples are your friends, the people that choose to be around you. And I felt God. I remember the night I was just driving in my car listening to music, and I don't even remember the song, but I just remember God said to me in that moment, he said, if you're such an annoyance, if these people are just tolerating you, why have they not left? Why are they still around? I started bawling my eyes out, and I called my best friend that night. And I don't know if he even remembers this, but I called him, and I just thanked him for being my friend and for loving me for me. And to this day, I mean, he is the most ride or die. Like, he is literally my brother in a way. And now I have two friend groups. I've got my best friend, his wife, and, a few others. And then I've got my other friend group, who's my brother, his wife, and a couple others. And I mean, these are people, I never asked God for these people, but I thank him for them every single day. I never have to question that I am loved with these people. They are my people. Now, some people don't have that. I am very lucky that God did that for me. And I pray that whoever hears this, if you don't have that, I pray that God gives you that you ask, and that he will give you people in your life that will lift you up. But along with that, there was a day where, kind of going back to the relationship thing of it, I really had to work on my self-image when it came to that. When I faced so much rejection from women, and again, I still do, but that's fine. I had to remind myself of Paul, who literally said, I wish I could be single, or I wish you could all be single like me. So I gave up my desire to have a relationship, to be married. I gave that up, and that was the thing I was putting before God. And I mean, literally, as soon as I did that, me and God, we were tight. I mean, I have never been closer to God I wasn't after that. And he healed every broken piece. I never once felt lonely after that. I live by myself now, which has not been easy, but it made it so much easier having him there. Just knowing that he is with me at all times. And I know that we crave, some of us extroverts specifically, we crave somebody to be in our physical presence. And yeah, but again, that's what I got my friends for. And I had to stop comparing. Just a couple months ago, I even texted my brother and his wife, and I said, man, I have been comparing myself to you for so long, and I hold that, and I don't want to anymore. Now, did I need to text him that? No. But I felt like it was something I needed to do to let go. Sometimes you have to confront the person who's you're comparing yourself to, and basically say, like, look, I'm not doing that anymore. I've been doing it, and I'm not. Now, I'm not saying you have to go do that. That's just what I needed to do. And I don't compare myself to him anymore. We're not the same person. We are as opposite as could be, so there's no reason to compare. And as for the self-image thing, I had to start looking in the mirror. I had to start telling myself, like, words of affirmation are a very powerful thing. Even if it's just to yourself, you have to tell yourself and receive that you are loved, that you are amazing, that you look good, or whatever it is you need to hear. You need to tell yourself these things. Write them out, put them on a sticky note right in front of your mirror, and say it every morning. I promise you it helps. But you have to be willing to receive the words that you are hearing from yourself. God did a work in me. He reminded me that he created me to be the person he needed me to be. And I have my quirks. I have a lot of them. I've got my annoyances. But I am who I am, and I love every part of me. And with the whole thing about like the jokes about myself, I still make jokes about myself, but that isn't because I believe those things. I mean, some of them I do, but not in a bad way. I've accepted like the things that I joke about. I joke about how I've like lost hair. I joke about being single and stuff like that. I am happy to be the butt of the joke because I have the confidence to do so. It doesn't hurt me anymore. It doesn't matter if somebody else makes the joke or if I do it. I can brush that off my shoulder, and I don't take anything to heart anymore. If somebody doesn't like me or says something bad about me, I don't care. I don't let it affect me because God gave me that confidence in myself to move forward with that, which is crazy if you knew where if you've been listening and know where I came from with all that. God really healed me of a lot. Now, I still deal with a lot of this. These are ongoing battles that I have to choose to win daily. I mean, there are days where I look in the mirror and I really am like, oh, really? But then I'm like, nope. You're like talking about my hair. Like, I'm like, nope, you're fine. You're good. Keep going. I have days where I just feel lonely and I'm just like, God, I need you. Or I reach out to one of my friends and I'm like, hey, like, and I just start talking, you know? God has given me ways out of these situations of feeling these things and has constantly reminded me that I am not these things. So I encourage you that if you're dealing with any of this, any of it, let me know. I'm here for you. Like, I wish I had a friend, and I did, but I wish I knew that I had somebody that had been through the stuff I had been through, that I could have talked to when I felt these things. It makes it so much easier when you know you've got somebody to talk to about them. I have given this testimony. This is my third time giving this testimony, but it is definitely the most vulnerable of them. And it was harder for me to get through, but I feel like I really needed to say it, and it took me a couple days to work up to it. I've given this testimony in church, and I've also given it to my church's youth group. The youth group got the much lighter version of this, and the church was a more scripted version. This is all just coming from memory and from heart. I am blessed to say that I truly love myself, that I know my value, and I know my worth. I know I'm an amazing child of God and a man of God, and I work every day to be that. Yeah, we all have our days where we feel cruddy, but we have to choose to remind ourselves who we really are. And I can say, even when I was younger, even when I was going through all of these things, the one thing, and you can ask anybody I grew up with, they'll tell you, I am a very consistent person. It doesn't matter which friend group I'm in or who I'm talking to, I am the same with everybody. Because if nothing else was true, I can say that I have always been myself with everybody. No matter what I went through, I never changed for anybody. And I refuse to. I never compromised that. Even if I didn't always know who I was sure enough not going to change, if that makes any sense. Which it might not, but it makes sense to me. So yeah, guys, that is my testimony with comparison, self-issues, or self, whatever. But like I said, we all have things we don't like about ourselves. We all like a lot of us compare ourselves to somebody, and it's not always easy. I am here if you need, and Pastor Elliot will be too. He hears a lot. You can reach out to him too, and I know he'll be fine with me saying that. So, and it doesn't have to be us. There are plenty of people in your church or even your friends. If you are not confident that your friends love you, look at their actions. Do they stick around? Do they encourage you? Because I used to think I used to take words of encouragement as like an insult, like it was like pitying. That was my mind. That was the devil playing tricks on my mind. You got to move on from that and realize people are actually caring and encouraging you. So reach out to me, Pastor Elliot or just somebody you can trust. Talk about these things, because I promise you will feel better if you do. And talk to God. He is there for you through all of it. He can heal you of all of this. He has done it for me, and he still does it daily. I am not who I was, not even a year ago, with this kind of stuff because of God. And I thank him every single day that I am not that person anymore. That I am a person who is healed and knows my self-worth and value. And nobody can bring me back down to where I was. Nobody can say anything that would hurt me. So, if you've stayed this long, thanks for listening. I'm glad I got to be vulnerable for a little bit for this half hour, and I really hope that somebody needed to hear this. And it could be a year from now. I don't know if somebody finds this podcast in 2025 or 2026 and they say, wow, I really needed that. And if nobody did, hey, it was therapeutic for me to say it out loud, and I may re-listen to it to remind myself of these things someday. You never know. God's got a reason for me saying it, and I knew he put it on my heart for a reason. So hopefully this appeals to somebody. So thank you guys for listening. Tune back in next week. We're going to be jumping back into the armor of God, and Pastor Elliot will be back for that. So it's going to be fun. Much lighter note than this episode was. But thanks, guys. This has been Dakota. Have a nice night. Oh, and also reach out on the Growing Place Podcast at gmail.com with any comments, questions, concerns, or anything like that. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Dakota. Peace out.